we talked about it throughout the year, how the Tampa Bay Rays seemed to adopt a philosophy that was unique in starting a reliever and then trying to either bring the starter in the middle of the game and go as long as you can, or bullpen their way through an entire game. And now we're seeing it in a playoff winner-go-home baseball game tonight. What do you think of the A's decision to start Liam Hendriks tonight?
Well, I think it's the right decision definitely for their ball club, because that's where their strength is. With a day off tomorrow, if they're able to get through this game, and also the strength of their club happens to be their bullpen. Their starting pitchers that they've either been injured this year or have taken off the scrap heap have done an amazing job. But their strength is their bullpen, and I think in a one-game or done scenario, I think Bob Melvin is making a great move. They're bullpenning as opposed to opening. I know for most fans they know the difference, but with the openers, there's always usually a starter who comes in and eats up 3 1/3 innings to 5 innings, but that's not going to be the case tonight. They would love Hendriks to get 1 or 2 innings, but it's really strictly going to be a bullpen. There won't be any starters that have come into the game. Edwin Jackson's on the roster, but he's only there in case we have a scenario like we saw last night. Kyle Hendricks had the end of the game for the Chicago Cubs, and if it has a typical a scenario like that tonight, then you might see Edwin Jackson in extra innings. But this will be their relievers, and if you work backwards, you got Trinan for 2, you got Familia for 2, you got Rodney for 1. So that's 5 right there. At some point, you have to get 4 innings out of a myriad of arms in that bullpen, and it'll be up to Bob Melvin to try to make those decisions.
So what do you think the Yankee strategy is tonight? What do you think Aaron Boone is doing with the lineup that had the most home runs ever for a regular season?
Yeah, for Aaron, offensively, there's no strategy. I mean, literally, he has one team. And all-star quality just about at every single position. You have a former MVP who's going to be DHing, maybe one of the best players in the game in right field. Aaron Hicks has run under the radar all year. He's had an amazing year. And Duhar might be the rookie of the year. I mean, you can go on and on and on. But that lineup is a lineup that's going to play 90% of the time for Boone. So I don't think there's any matchups that he can do to match what Melvin's going to do, and that is that none of the pitchers, other than the guys at the end, Familia and Trinan, are going to face hitters more than once. So what do you do if you're an offense? I don't know. I think what you have to consider if you're the Yankee team, this is the exact thing that would happen if in the beginning of the year or the middle of the year you knocked out a starting pitcher in the first inning and the opposite team had the bullpen the rest of the game. That's how they have to consider it. It's just that kind of game.
Except in that situation, though, the team that has the bullpen for the rest of the game is in a situation they didn't want or expect. This is part of the A's strategy. Do you think this is good for baseball, Ron?
Well, I think you can only, in the postseason, can be done in these kind of wild card scenarios where you have the day off right afterwards. Is it good for baseball? I think what it does, as we saw with the Tampa Bay Rays this year, it allows teams that might not have the depth of the Dodgers or the Yankees and other teams to find fluid kind of ways to kind of try to compete. And I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a good thing. But don't forget, Tampa Bay wouldn't have been able to do what they did all season if it weren't for Blake Snell every fifth day throwing up a W and zeros, So
Right, so, you're just pouring one out for some of the starters here, Ron, exactly. As a former starting pitcher. I mean, right? I mean, you guys aren't totally useless anymore, right?
I mean, I feel at times as a former starting pitcher that's the way it's going to go. But, there's always those guys that transcend any decision that any analytic department is going to make. There's no analytic department that's going to take Max Scherzer out of a starting rotation. And for me, and I'm old enough to care about this stuff. I always still look now probably on my device, but I always still look for the pitching matchups, and if I see a good one, I always try to catch it.
Yeah, so who from that Mets pen would have been the best starter, do you think, if Davey Johnson played this type of ball?
Oh, geez, I
What do you think?
I think Roger McDowell would have been that guy because he could easily get you 2 innings to get the ball rolling with the maybe force the other team to have the left-handed lineup, and then at some point that left-handed lineup has to face Jesse Orozco for the final 2 innings. I think that would be a good mix.
And how would you have taken the news that you weren't starting, but they were going to bullpen their way to a championship?
I would have bulged my neck in public. At private, I would have cried like a little baby.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.